The opening week of the NFL had some great games on this Sunday. But what a Saturday also in college football. A ton of upsets, which really shook up the top 25 this week. We have an 18th different winner of the season in the NASCAR Cup Series, and we have a new IndyCar champion crowned today at Laguna Seca. And we will start the show, and I will talk about all that and more, and I will have my closing thoughts, and we will start the show right after this. All right, let's get this show underway. We got a lot to talk about. I got a lot to talk about here in about the next half hour, 45 minutes or so. I'm just going to warn you, that may be that long of a show. Because we had some great games on Sunday in the NFL, and we had some great college football upsets on Saturday. And I'm going to jump right into it right now. But how do we begin the show? The Cleveland Browns beating the Carolina Panthers 26-24 on a 58-yard game-winning field goal by Cade York. It was Baker Mayfield's first game against his old team. But first of all, Cleveland's Jacoby Brissett did a pretty good job for a first time. 18-34, 147 yards and a touchdown. Nothing spectacular, but he got it done. Nick Chubb, 22 carries, 141 yards and a touchdown. Kareem Hunt, 70 total yards and 2 touchdowns. 64 rushing and 42 receiving. 64 receiving. Yeah, he had 70 total yards for the game. Myles Garrett, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss in the game. And that was big. For the Carolina Panthers, Baker Mayfield, 16-27, 235 yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception. Christian McCaffrey, 57 total yards offense for the day. He had a touchdown of his own. Robbie Anderson, 5 catches, 102 yards, and a touchdown. And Damian Wilson, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. The Carolina Panthers' slow start really cost him at the end of the day. They only had 13 yards offense in the first 5 drives. That was ridiculous. The Browns had a 20-7 lead at the end of the third quarter. But once again, they almost gave it away. Cade York should get the key to Cleveland, get the key to the city of Cleveland for coming through with a 58-yard game-winning field goal at the end of the game. I mean, think about it. I mean, Carolina, 15 first downs, 261 yards total offense for the game. They only had 54 yards rushing on the day. And they barely had the ball for just over 21 minutes. Cleveland ran the ball very well, 217 yards rushing. Very impressive. But they were penalized 9 times for 71 yards, and they had the ball for just a little over 38 minutes today. Carolina's slow start is what cost them, despite the fact that the Browns almost gave me a heart attack again. The cardiac kids do it again at the end against their old quarterback, Baker Mayfield. Jacoby Brissett, super job filling in for the suspended Deshaun Watson. I think Brissett should just be the starter for the rest of the season. Now, I know it's the first game of the year. Brissett's got some work to do. But the Browns getting the win on the road in Carolina was the most impressive thing that a lot of people saw from the Cleveland Browns. To beat their old mate, Baker Mayfield, that meant a lot. And that was the truth of the matter. Congratulations to the Browns. They're 1-0 on the season. But if you want to talk about great early games, I got one. I got one that might be able to be a close second, or very close to a tie. The Pittsburgh Steelers beat the reigning AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals 23-20 in overtime. Mitch Trubisky is making his first ever start. Keep in mind, Ben Roethlisberger retired at the end of the season last year. How did Trubisky do? He was 21-38, 194 yards and a touchdown. But the defense was the story of the game. Alex Highsmith, 3 sacks, 2 tackles for loss in the game. TJ Watt, 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss himself in this ball game. But I got some bad news on TJ Watt, and I'll get to that in a second. But Minkah Fitzpatrick, he had a 31-yard touchdown interception. He had a pick 6 in the ball game. And that was in the first quarter. I saw that, and I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. As far as the Cincinnati Bengals go, Joe Burrow, 33 of 53, 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions today. Ouch. Jamar Chase, 10 catches, 129 yards, and a touchdown. Tyler Boyd, 4 catches, 33 yards, and a touchdown of his own. And R.J. Hill had 1 sack and 1 tackle for loss. The Pittsburgh Steelers had 7 sacks total against the Bengals. The Bengals' offensive line is a nightmare. 7 sacks, but Cincinnati had a bad day kicking. They had a block PAT at the end of regulation, which could have won it for them. They missed a field goal in overtime. Pittsburgh's Chris Boswell missed a field goal in overtime and hit the game winner in the final seconds of overtime to give the Steelers a 23-20 victory. But TJ Watt suffered a pectoral injury late in the fourth quarter. We don't know how long he's going to be out. Head coach Mike Tomlin's already said, I've got guys who can step up to the plate. Alex Highsmith proved that today. 3 sacks, 2 tackles for loss in the ball game. You tell me, you think that's stepping up to the plate? Now, TJ Watt is a leader, but I think Alex Highsmith could step up and be a leader himself, depending how long Watt is out. That's the main thing. And that's what everybody needs to remember. And that's the bottom line. But think about this for the Steelers. How in the world did they win this ball game today? Pittsburgh, 13 first downs, 267 yards total offense. They only ran the ball only rushed the ball for 75 yards. Penalized 8 times for 59 yards and only had the ball for just a little over 26 minutes. But the Bengals committed 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions by Joe Burrow. So with that being said, the AFC champion Bengals are off to a bad start. And not a good way to open the season. At home, in front of your home fans. You lose it in overtime in the closing seconds. But for the Steelers, my hats go off to him. Mitch Trubisky stepping up to the plate. Kenny Pickett will probably get a start here and there down the road. I've not forgotten about the former Pitt star. Think about that. But the Steelers get it done on the road in Cincinnati. Despite the fact they may have lost TJ Watt for a time. Alex Highsmith, I got a feeling he's going to step up and be a real leader. You watch. All right. Let's move on. The LA Chargers beat the Las Vegas Raiders today 24-19. What a game this was. At one point, the Raiders were down, but not out. Justin Herbert, 26-34, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns. DeAndre Carter, three catches, 64 yards, and a touchdown of his own. Gerald Everett, 3 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown of his own. Khalil Mack, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss today. Joey Bosa, the former 49er, 1.5 sacks and 1 tackle for loss today. I had to give him some love. Joey Bosa from Ohio State. I had to do that. But as far as the Las Vegas Raiders go, Derek Carr, 22 of 37, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Devontae Adams, 10 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. Brandon Bolden, 2 catches, 21 yards, and a touchdown. But the Raiders had no sacks in the game. That's what hurt. That's what really hurt them right there. And as far as penalties go, it was a fairly clean game. The Raiders only got penalized 3 times for 11 yards. I'm used to saying the Raiders got penalized 10 to 12 times for almost 100 and some yards. They played a real clean game for them. And I'm being sincere about that. But here's the problem. 3 turnovers, that's what cost them. That's what happened today out in L.A. The L.A. Chargers, Los Angeles, a nice city, but the Raiders will be glad to get out of L.A. and return home to Vegas, where everything in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas in the NFL, if you get what I mean. A great win for the Chargers today. Well done for the L.A. Chargers. Now let's move on. The New York Giants beat the Tennessee Titans today 21-20. What a big game that was. Daniel Jones, 17 of 21, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did have an interception. Saquon Barkley from Penn State, 15 carries, 164 yards, and a touchdown. Sterling Shepard, 2 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown of his own. And Tolman Fox, he had 1 big sack in the ball game. As for the Tennessee Titans, they lost this game in the worst way possible. Randy Bullock missed a 47-yard field goal at the end of the game. Well, the Titans trailed the Giants 13-0 at the half. That did not help matters any. But Ryan Tannehill, 20 of 33, 266 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dontrell Hill, 3 catches, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns in the game. Jeffrey Simmons, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss in this game. And Rasheed Weaver, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss himself. This was the first win for New York Giants' new head coach, Brian Daboll, as he made his coaching debut and he got it done. But so did Saquon Barkley. With 1:06 left in the game, Saquon Barkley hit the 2-point conversion to give the Giants a 21-20 lead. And then Randy Bullock of Tennessee missed a 47-yard field goal at the end of the ball game, which secured the Giants' 21-20 victory. Last year, the Tennessee Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC in the playoffs. They lost to the Bengals. Now they lose to the Giants in the opening game of the 2022 season. That is not good starting the season. But I looked at all the numbers. The Giants ran the ball much better, 238 to 93. Tennessee only had 93 yards rushing as a team for the game. Now, third down, the defenses did a really super job. The Giants were only 2 of 10, while Tennessee was only 3 of 11. And that was it for the game. If Brian Daboll may be onto something. I mean, Saquon Barkley carried the ball 15 times for 164 yards and a touchdown. That was huge. But Tennessee had some major mess-ups at the end of regulation at the worst possible time. 2 back-to-back losses. One in the playoffs against Cincinnati, then they lose at home to the Giants. Actually, they gave it away. Is what they did. And that's the truth of this matter on this Sunday. These were 4 big games in the NFL that I saw highlights of today. And I'll say this. As far as the NFL goes, not a bad opening act. That was a really excellent opening act, except with the exception of a couple of blowouts. But all in all, that was a really excellent opening act across the NFL. We still got one more to go. The Broncos play the Seahawks on Monday night. But an excellent opening act and an excellent way to open up the NFL season. And that's the truth. All right. We take our leave of the NFL. and we had to upset Central here in my house, here in my home. From upset Central on college football Saturday, we got a lot of upsets to talk about. Where do we start? How about Marshall upsetting number 8 Notre Dame 26-21 on Saturday? What in the world happened to the Fighting Irish? I'll get to that in a minute. Henry Colombi, 16-21, 145 yards and a touchdown. Kalon Jabron, 31 carries, 163 yards and a touchdown. Sam Burton, he had a sack and a tackle for loss in the game, but Stephen Gilmore had a 37-yard pick six interception, and he ran it back for a touchdown. As for Notre Dame, Tyler Buckner, he was 18-32, 201 yards, and he had 2 interceptions. He carried the ball himself 13 times for 44 yards, and he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Michael Mayer, 8 catches, 103 yards, and a touchdown in the ball game. Jack Kaiser, 1 sack, 1.5 tackles for loss. And Isaiah Foskey, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss in the game. I look at everything. I looked at the stats, but the one thing that's really stuck out, Notre Dame had 3 turnovers. They put themselves in a bad position right out of the gate. New Notre Dame head coach Marcus Freeman has yet to win a game as the head coach of the Fighting Irish. How embarrassing for the Fighting Irish to lose to a Marshall team. A Marshall team that just years ago was in the MAC, in the Mid-America Conference. This is crazy. I have never seen a Notre Dame team play so bad. Okay, they lost a close one to Ohio State. Okay, that was a gut check. But to lose to Marshall at home when you're almost about a 20-point favorite and you give it away, that's crazy. I have never seen Notre Dame play bad in the first 2 games of the season. They're unranked. They're out of the top 25 for the first time in 5 years, since 2017. 5 years ago, Notre Dame played Georgia at home. Notre Dame was lucky to be in the top 25 at that point. They got knocked out by Georgia after a 20-19 loss to South Bend. It was Kirby Smart's first game as a Georgia head coach. Keep that in mind. It's been that long since Notre Dame has been out of the top 25. I don't know what else more I can say about the Notre Dame game against Marshall. All I can say is unbelievable. But if you think Marshall upsetting Notre Dame was absolutely crazy, I got another one for you. How about an upset from the Sun Belt? Appalachian State has done it again. They have upset a Power 5 school. This time it was number 6 Texas A&M. What happened? Let's think about this. Chase Price, 15-30, 134 yards and a touchdown. Cameron Peoples, 19 carries, 112 yards. Amani Marshall, 11 carries, 35 yards and a touchdown of his own. But Jalen McLeod was the story of the game for the defense for App State. 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss in that contest. As for Texas A&M, Hayes King, 13-20, 97 yards. That was it for him, but he did carry the ball 8 times for 23 yards. He had nothing to show for it. Devon Aching, 10 carries, 66 yards, and a touchdown. But he did have a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. There were so many things that went wrong with Texas A&M in this game. They had a missed field goal at the end, only 9 first downs, 186 yards total offense for the game. 2 for 8 on third down. 7 penalties for 60 yards. And he only had the ball for just over 18 minutes. App State, they did a great job. They wore down Texas A&M. That's exactly what happened. Long drives. Appalachian State, 22 first downs, 315 yards total offense, 9-20 on third down. And they had the ball for over 41 minutes. Texas A&M didn't show me anything except that touchdown drive and the kickoff return. Other than that, it was nothing but App State from start to finish. You're thinking 17-14, a close game, but a missed field goal cost Texas A&M at the end of the ball game. That's what most people seem to forget. But I look at everything else. Two major upsets in the world of college football this weekend, so far that I've talked about. But if you think App State and Texas A&M was crazy, how about Washington State upsetting Wisconsin in that game on Saturday? I'll give Washington State credit. They did a remarkable job. Cameron Ward, 17-28, 200 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Nakia Watson, 64 yards total offense for the game, and he had 2 touchdowns. Big game for him. Wisconsin's Graham Mertz, a former Notre Dame backup, 18-31, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Clay Cundiff, 4 catches, 59 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Keep in mind, Washington was a 17-point underdog going into the ball game. Wisconsin missed 2 field goals. And this game was ugly for Washington State. Think about this. 10 first downs, 253 yards total offense for the game. Wisconsin outrushed Washington State 174-53. Wisconsin had 401 yards total offense. Both teams turned the ball over 3 times. But penalties. Wisconsin got penalized 11 times, 106 yards. That was one of the most major deciding factors in this game. And that's just all there is to it. I have never seen a team so dominate but lose the game every which way possible. Wisconsin had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss in the game. That was it. Washington State had 1 sack, but they had 7 tackles for loss. So the Washington State defense did a super job. They really did. And Nakia Watson really stepped up to the plate. And he had 2 touchdowns against his former team. Think about it. He used to be at Wisconsin. That's something to think about. My hat's off to Washington State for getting the job done. But both teams turned the ball over 3 times. Washington State barely had the ball for just under 22 minutes. And they still come out the winner. And they still come out with the win. Wisconsin's mistakes cost them dearly. And that's all I got to say about that game. Now, those were the 3 big upsets that I just want to talk about. But we had 3 other big games over the weekend. The 3 ranked versus ranked matchups that I told everybody about. And it was well worth it. Number 24 Tennessee beat number 17 Pitt 34-27 on Saturday. For Tennessee, Hendon Hooker, he went 27 of 42, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns. Cedric Tillman, Spencer Tillman's little boy, 9 catches, 162 yards, and a touchdown. And Brew McCoy, 4 catches, 58 yards, and a touchdown in the game. But the defense stepped up too. Byron Young, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. And Tyler Barron, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss for him. But as for the Pitt Panthers, it's a disappointment. But Keldon Salvis, 14-24, 195 yards, 1 touchdown. He got picked off once. And I'll get to that interception in a second. Israel Akabadina, 25 carries, 154 yards, and a touchdown. Gavin Bartholomew, 5 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown of his own. Jared Wayne, 7 catches, 82 yards, and a touchdown of his own. And Elijah Cansey, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss today in the ball game on Saturday. But as for the Pitt Panthers, there was a bunch of things that hurt. They've lost Keldon Salvis to an undisclosed injury at the end of the first half. We don't know what's going on with him. And that's unfortunate. But the Pitt Panthers have 3 costly errors. 2 missed field goals and a red zone interception. That's where the interception for Slavis comes in. Those were the three things that really, really cost Pitt at the end of the day. I mean, this game was almost evenly matched from start to finish. This was a great game on Saturday in Pittsburgh, everybody. A great game, 34-27 in overtime. I didn't forget about that part. The game had to go to overtime. And I mean, the Pitt Panthers, they led at the end of the first half. They get out a golden opportunity to put it away, but they blew it. And just unfortunate that it had to end in like this, with it taking overtime to get the job done. And that's all there is to it. Great win for Tennessee. A disappointing loss for Pitt, a minor setback, but they'll be back. I guarantee it. A great job for Tennessee. All right, let's move on. Number 20 Kentucky versus number 12 Florida. Kentucky beat Florida 26-16. 2 years in a row that the Wildcats have beat the Gators. This time they beat them in the swamp. And they scored the final 13 points of the ball game to get the job done. Will Levis for Kentucky. 13-24, 202 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Dane Key, 3 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Wright, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. And Kendrion Smith had a 65-yard interception, pick 6. That was a huge blow for Florida right there. But as far as Florida goes, Anthony Richardson, 14-35, 143 yards. He was picked off twice. Trevor Etney, 7 carries, 62 yards and a touchdown. Amari Burney, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. And Justice Boone, 1 sack and 1 tackle for loss in the ball game. Give the Kentucky defense credit. They shut out Florida. Florida got shut out in the second half. They did not score at all. Those 2 interceptions by Florida really cost them dearly. Florida, 12 first downs, 279 yards total offense. But they did outrush Kentucky 136-70. 2 years in a row, Kentucky gets it done against Florida. And what a game it was. And that was a great game. Unfortunately, Florida got shut out second half. But at the end of the day, Kentucky got the job done at the right possible time. A great win for a great program. And this is Mike Stoops' 10th season at Kentucky, so he knows how to get it done in the clutch. And that's the bottom line, and that is the truth of this matter. All right. Last, but certainly not least, number 9 Baylor, number 21 BYU. Yes, Brigham Young University knows how to play football. Yes, the Mormon Church knows how to get the job done in big games. Or actually, the members of the BYU football team know how to get the job done in big games. And that's just all there is to it. BYU beat Baylor 26-20 despite not having their 2 top receivers, Puka Nakara and Gunnar Romney. BYU did it. It took them double overtime to do it, but they got the job done. Jaron Hall, 23 of 39, 261 yards and a touchdown. He even caught a touchdown pass for 22 yards. Lapani Kotea. I'm having a hard time. If I mispronounce your name, my apologies. 9 carries, 26 yards and a touchdown. Chase Roberts. He was the one that threw the touchdown pass to Jaron Hall. 8 catches, 122 yards and a touchdown. Ben Bywater, 1 sack, 1.5 tackles for loss. And Caden Hawes, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss in the ball game. But what happened to Baylor? Baylor's kicking goofs really hurt. Baylor's Isaiah Hankins missed a PAT in the first quarter and then missed a field goal in overtime. But BYU got shut down on the run game, and I'll get to that in a second. But for Baylor, Blake Shapen, 18 to 28, 137 yards and a touchdown. Quinion Jones, 16 carries, 67 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ben Sims, 4 catches, 30 yards and a touchdown in the ball game. Matt Jones, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. And Devin Neal, he had 1 sack and 2 tackles for loss in this ball game. I will give Baylor this. They did a pretty nice job of shutting down the run, BYU's run offense. BYU had 33 carries for 83 yards total. That was it on the run game. But BYU had some kicking problems. BYU's Jake Oldroy missed a 35-yard field goal with 8 seconds left. That could have given BYU the win. And he missed a 37-yarder to force a second overtime. But Baylor got in a lot of trouble. 22 first downs, 289 yards total offense for the game. They were penalized 14 times for 117 yards. That's what cost them. This game between Baylor and BYU was the game of the weekend. I made the dumb mistake of staying up till 2:20. I stayed up over past 2 in the morning to watch the finish of this ball game. It was a miracle I was able to get up this morning and go to church. I had to be at church at 9 o'clock in the morning. I woke up about 9:30. I went to church. Half the congregation that was there, they were lucky to keep their eyes open. And that's just all there is to it. This was a great game. My prediction was right. I said BYU was going to win a close one, and I nailed it. But I wish it didn't have to happen in double overtime, and I wish I didn't have to stay up past 2 in the morning. That was my only complaint. But it is what it is. And that's the truth of the matter. And with that being said, the new AP Top 25 poll has come out. Georgia and Alabama have switched spots. Alabama dropped to number 2 after almost blowing it against Texas. They can thank the officials for that one. Georgia, a convincing win. Alabama, barely squeaking by a Texas team. You got to be kidding. The refs gave that game to Alabama. I'm sorry. Ohio State will stay at 3. A good win over Arkansas State keeps them at 3. Michigan blowing out Hawaii keeps them at 4. Clemson stays at 5. Oklahoma moved up 1 spot to number 6 this week. And USC, a huge win over Stanford, puts them in the 7th spot. They moved up 3 spots this week. Oklahoma State moved up 3 spots this week up to number 8. Kentucky, their huge win over Florida, jumps them up to number 9. They moved up 11 spots this week. Arkansas, the Razorbacks, they're back in a big way. They jumped 6 spots to number 10 this week. Michigan State, they come in at 11. At number 11, they jumped up 3 spots. BYU, they jumped 9 spots to number 12 this week. Miami, a nice little jump for them. They jumped 2 spots to number 13. Utah took a minor step back. They dropped 1 spot to number 14 this week. Tennessee, the Tennessee Volunteers, they jumped 9 spots to number 15. NC State, they jumped 2 spots this week to number 16. Baylor, that double OT loss against BYU really hurt them. They dropped 8 spots this week to number 17 in the latest poll. Florida dropped 6 spots after not scoring in the second half against Kentucky. They dropped to number 18. Wake Forest jumped 4 spots to number 19 this week. Ole Miss jumped 2 spots to number 20 this week. And believe it or not, I can't believe I'm saying this. The Texas Longhorns, despite losing by 1 over Alabama, they got themselves into the top 25. They come in at number 21. Welcome to the Texas Longhorns. Welcome to the top 25. Penn State debuts, coming in at number 22 this week. Pitt, that disappointing loss to Tennessee, it dropped 6 spots to number 23. The biggest loser of the weekend, Texas A&M. They dropped 18 spots from number 6 to number 24. And you can thank Appalachian State. And coming in at number 25, Oregon. After getting their doors blown off by Georgia in the opening game of the season, they got a big win. And they're back in the top 25 at number 25. Welcome back, Oregon. All right, I've had enough. I've had enough football talk for one day. Now it's time to talk some auto racing. The NASCAR Cup Series was in Kansas today. Bubba Wallace became the 18th different winner of the season. He led 58 laps today. Denny Hamlin finished second. Christopher Bell finished third. Alex Bowman finished fourth. He led the most laps with 107. Martin Truex Jr. was fifth. William Byron finished sixth this week. Ross Chastain seventh. Kyle Larson eighth. Ryan Blaney ninth. And Daniel Suarez finished 10th. And Christopher Bell, with his third place finish, has become the first driver to clinch his spot into the round of 12, despite the fact that two non-chase drivers have won the first two races of the playoffs. This has been unbelievable. 18 different winners this season. That is something. And another big story to come out of Kansas this weekend. Kyle Busch is going to be going to Richard Childress Racing after all his years with Joe Gibbs Racing. Will Kyle Busch find success there? We'll have to wait and see on that. And finally tonight, the IndyCar season is over. Laguna Seca Raceway was the home of the final race of the season. Alex Palou got his first win of the season over a year. He got his first win of the season finally. Joseph Newgarden finished second, Will Power third, and with that third place finish, Will Power is the new IndyCar champion. Felix Rosenqvist finished fourth, and Christian Lundgaard finished fifth. This is the second IndyCar title for Will Power and the Roger Penske team. And my congratulations to Mr. Power for getting the job done today at Laguna Seca. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for my closing thoughts on this night. Scott Frost has been fired from Nebraska. He got a $15 million buyout today. The university bought out his contract, and he has been fired. He was 5-23 in close games. They lost another close one to a low end school. I don't remember the name of it. I don't even care. Scott Frost has brought nothing but disappointment to Nebraska football. So the next question is, should Nebraska Athletic Director Trev Alberts be fired? Some people are saying yes. There are some people that are actually calling for his job. Scott Frost getting fired from Nebraska may be the best thing that ever happened to the Big Ten Conference. I mean, I have never seen anything like this. Nebraska, has been the butt of the joke since Frost came on the scene. Scott Frost didn't know what he was doing. He was out of his league. That's all I'm going to say about that. So the next question is, who becomes the next head coach? Some people are wanting Urban Meyer. I don't think Urban Meyer is going to do it. But I'll tell you what. I will say this, though. Whoever takes over as the coach of the Nebraska football team, they're going to have a lot of work to do because Scott Frost did one thing very well. He damaged the program. He turned Nebraska from a powerhouse to a nightmare. Nebraska hasn't been relevant since Tom Osborne left. I shouldn't sound like that, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I have never seen a Nebraska football team so bad in my life. To go 5-23 in close games in games decided by 7 or less, absolutely inexcusable. I'm trying to be reasonable. Yes, I am. But I just can't. And that's just all there is to it. And that's the bottom line on this day. Okay, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here on this night. Please go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Scott Manning. All you have to do is type my name, scroll down, look for this pretty face, click subscribe, and you will see all of the sports shows I have done so far. I want to thank you guys for being with me here on this night. You guys have a great night. Thank you so much for being with me, and God bless. Good night, everybody, and I thank you.